Husband abandoned me during our expensive fertility treatments. Years later, his wealthy father left me the inheritance instead of him. So, now my ex is dragging me to court. My husband abandoned me while we were on fertility treatment. That's right. I still tear up thinking about how did I even survive that phase. I got married to my husband in my mid-20s. We were high school buddies. He was pursuing law while I graduated in accounting. I started earning while he was still in college. Right from then, I was helping him financially. I was the one who paid for our dates and his overpriced gadgets. Though he was well off, his dad was clear that he was not going to pay a penny beyond his college tuition, rent, and food. David, my loser husband, used to call his dad a miser, but after getting to know his dad, I realized he was using the right technique to raise his callous son. But by then it was too late and I had already showered my earnings on keeping him happy. David was the only child of his parents. He naturally assumed that his dad's business was going to be his. He didn't take college seriously and dropped out of law school to join his father's business. That's when we got married. He thought since it was his father's business, he would just lounge at the office and enjoy the fruit of his father's hard work. His father tried to instill seriousness in him and teach him business lessons, but David was not ready to learn. He wanted the money to be served on a platter, but his dad got no chills. After enduring him for 2 years, he threw him out of the company and said he could join it only after working for 5 years in other companies. I hated his dad for doing this because we were planning to have a child, but his firing delayed our plan. Back then I used to believe whatever David fed me. He used to paint a picture that he was right while his dad was a miser and tough. In retrospect, I think his dad was right all this while and I was dumb to believe him blindly. After a lot of struggle and some firings, David got a stable job. We started planning for a baby. That's when the real problem began. Months after months went, but we got no luck in seeing the 2 lines on the pregnancy test. After trying naturally for more than 2 years, our doctor suggested we go for IVF. It was a draining process, in all ways, physically, mentally, and of course financially. Our medical bills were already over the roof in 2 years, and then on top of that, opting for an IVF was yet another challenge. We were certain of having at least one child. I should say I was adamant about having a child. David was not passionate like me but didn't deny having a child. He did what he had to do to conceive. When the doctor explained the process of IVF, its success rate, and medical bills, David flipped out. It is quite natural for anyone to flip out given the money you have to put in and the poor success rate. I said I wanted to have a child even if that meant emptying all my savings. David said I was on my own in this because he's not liking his job and would quit any time. He said though he's going to support me in this, but he's okay even if we don't have a child. I was so blind to become a mother that I didn't see any of the red flags. Thankfully my career was going well amidst all the medical troubles in my life. I liquidated all my savings and started the process. It was a harrowing experience, to say the least. I thought I had already undergone 2 years of treatment with several hormonal injections and endless medicines. I could endure IVF process, how hard it could be. But it was difficult. After a while, I lost the count of injections I had been through. To add to my distress, our first attempt failed. It was so heartbreaking that I didn't get up from the bed for days. The doctor briefed us for the next attempt. Physically and mentally, I was ready to give it a shot again, but finance was a concern. My savings were gone already. I asked David if he could spare something for this. After a lot of to and fro, he gave me $3,000, which was like 5% of the money we needed. I borrowed it from friends and family and went for another attempt. Dang, it failed too. This failure hurt more because now I was in debt and still childless. I gave up on my dreams of becoming a mother. My friend working at a bank suggested medical loans. Without thinking twice, I applied for it and went for the 3rd attempt. You see the desperateness. David was against it. Even my family said it was futile to spend so much money without any guaranteed success, but something in me urged me to go for it. David got hostile to my decision. Ever since we started our IVF process, he has been distant from me. I thought it was due to my crankiness. Hormonal injections come with a hell amount of mood swings and terrible effects on your health. Our sex life became negligible. I thought once we have the baby, everything would fall into place beautifully. I failed to sense that things had already fallen apart. During our 3rd attempt at IVF, after doing his bit, giving his sperm, he said he wanted to go on vacation because he was mentally exhausted. I wanted to punch him on the face for his whining. He couldn't even fathom what I was going through. Endless injections, mood swings, sleepless nights, yet he was the one who needed the vacation. With so many things going on in my life, I ignored his tantrums to be dealt with in the last and let him do whatever he wanted. When he came back after his 2 weeks vacation, I rushed to give him the good news. I had conceived. He gave me an awkward hug and was uncomfortable the entire time. I thought he was just overwhelmed. After nudging him, he confessed he wanted to break up with me. The reason? He found comfort in another woman. That 2 weeks trip was not to relax his mind from the IVF stress but to make up his mind for his mistress. He went on the trip with this woman to see if he could live with her and he found himself happier than ever. He said he never felt that spark with me which he got with her. He was basically cheating on me while I was draining myself with all my might to have his baby. I'm not going to describe how I felt that day. I can't describe it actually. Just imagine your husband saying that he had been sleeping with another woman and want to leave you when you're just 1 week pregnant, and that too in your 3rd attempt at IVF. My body was sore with the months of treatment and now I had to prepare myself for a healthy pregnancy and childbirth. I said, F off, I don't want to deal with you. The next morning when I woke up, he was gone with all his stuff. I called his workplace and got to know he had quit his job months ago. When I called his friends, I got to know that he had borrowed money from them and had been ghosting them. No one knew where he was. There was no trace of him. He abandoned me with an unborn child and piles of debts. It had been 9 years since then. I was blessed with a baby girl. In that vulnerable situation, my Phil came to my rescue. He cleared off David's debts as well as my medical loans and the debts I had incurred during the IVF. He also paid the hospital bills for my delivery. Mill and Phil supported me throughout my pregnancy and even after that. Until I went back to work, Phil sent me money for monthly expenses. After I went back to work, I stopped taking help from Phil. I made decent money to be able to take care of my daughter. Life was going normal until we lost Mill and COVID. Phil was also infected, but he was able to fight the virus, but Mill succumbed to it. This happened during the first month of COVID. Though Phil had recovered, losing Mill was very tough on him, emotionally. On top of that, there was a lockdown, so he couldn't meet anyone or even go outside. He was giving up on life. It was my turn to pay his debt. I volunteered to move in with him with my daughter. He needed someone at home to be able to talk and express his emotions. My daughter also needed a companion because outdoor activities were shut. So moving with her grandpa was best for all of us. Phil Heath improved considerably. My daughter made memories of her lifetime with her grandpa. Even after the lockdown was lifted, my daughter refused to leave grandpa's house because it had a garden and pool and she loved staying with grandpa. So we continued to live with him. Last year, my company wanted us to work from the office, so we had to move back to our home. Commuting from Phil's place was not possible because my workplace was away from his house. Phil was very upset and insisted we stay with him and he would take care of our expenses, but I didn't want to suck onto his money. I promised him that we would visit him every week and we did. Last month, my Phil got terribly sick. He was rushed to the hospital. He passed away in his sleep on the third day of his stay at the hospital. The doctor said that the primary reason for his deteriorating health was his loneliness. During his stay, he had asked his nurse to make several calls to his siblings and other family members, but no one turned up. Even his call history suggested that he called many of his relatives, but hardly anyone came to meet him. I found his diary in his bedroom drawer. He wrote how he was so grateful to me for staying with him and how much he enjoyed playing with my daughter. After his death, I called up all the relatives to inform them about Phil's demise, and surprisingly everyone showed their interest in attending the funeral. It's funny because no one showed up when he was alive. During his funeral, David showed up. God knows how he came to know about Phil's demise. He must have been in touch with some